All the religions of the world cannot deny, they cannot avoid the reality of Jesus Christ. In fact, the thing that separates Christianity from all the other religions in the world, that makes it the one true religion, it's simply found in one person, and his name is Jesus. I mean, he told his disciples, he told his followers that he would be handed over to his enemies, he would be killed, but then 3 days later, he would be raised from the dead. And you ready for this? He did it. He actually did it. In fact, you would need to know right off the bat that Jesus, he died. He was falsely accused, and then he was sentenced to be executed. He was whipped repeatedly to the point that most people would have died through what he went through. From there, they took him to what was called the Praetorium, which was basically the locker room of the Roman guards. And it was there that they pulled his beard out of his face. They hit him, they spit on him, they punched him, they fashioned a crown of 4-inch thorns and they thrust it into his head. They put a heavy 100-pound cross on his bloody exposed back and they made him take it to the place where he would be executed. And you've seen the movies, you've heard the stories. They took railroad spikes and they drove them deep into his hands and his feet. See, Jesus was crucified by professional executioners, and they're the ones that declared that he was dead. In fact, when he was on the cross, hanging there after he had died, one of the Roman soldiers, just to verify, they took a spear and they thrust it up underneath his rib cage, puncturing his rib cage, puncturing the heart, and a mixture of blood and water came gushing out. And every doctor that's alive would tell you that that is the result of a ruptured heart. And I'm telling you that when your heart explodes, there's no coming back from that. You are dead. They took Jesus off of the cross, and like a mummy, they wrapped him in 100 pounds of linen. 100 pounds. And so think about this. If at that point Jesus was still alive and breathing with an exploded heart in his chest, the sheer weight of the linen would have suffocated him. From there, they took him and put him in a cold tomb, carved out of the side of a mountain, out of a hill, freezing cold. And so let's just say that he was able to breathe through the 100 pounds of linen with an exploded heart in his chest. The freezing temperatures would have sent his body into shock. And you ready for this? He was there 3 days. No food, no water, no medical attention. No, I'm going to tell you what, everybody. Jesus died. But then I want you to notice this. There were eyewitness accounts. So even though he was dead, he came back to life. And this is historical and verifiable that 500 people gave witness of the fact that they saw Jesus after he was resurrected. Even his disciples who saw him multiple times. And then to even prove more that this could have never been a lie, I want you to see this, that those eyewitness accounts were heavily relied on by women. And I'll tell you why this is such a big deal, because before the advent of Christianity, women were considered second-class citizens. So women weren't even allowed to voice their opinion or to even be a witness in a court of law. And yet the first people to give witness that the tomb was empty and that Jesus was alive were women. See, if this whole thing would have been a lie, they would have never used women to be the very first voices of the fact that Jesus had been risen from the dead. And the last thing, and I think this is incredible, this actually puts the nail in the coffin, in my opinion, is the explanation given by the enemies of Christ. Because people said, well, hey, where's the body of Jesus? And notice, they didn't say, well, his body is right here, look. Number two, they didn't say, well, Peter and James, they snuck by the Roman guards and they rolled away that big heavy stone and tiptoed with Jesus' body down the street. No, this is what their response was. They said, Someone actually stole his body out of the tomb that was sealed by the Roman government, guarded by the Roman army. And by the way, we can't find out anywhere where they put it. Have you ever seen those old cop shows? I mean, a lot of them were all the same. In fact, not too long ago here in Dallas, there was a group of gang members that were caught. One of them had committed murder, and so they were investigating all of them to find out which one did it. But they all had each other's back until one by one, the cops began to turn the heat up on them, and one by one, they began to crack. See, here's what I need you to understand today, and that's this. Nobody will ever die to protect a lie. Not you, not me. And that's what makes the resurrection so absolutely amazing and interesting. See, these eyewitnesses say that they saw Jesus after he had been raised from the dead. They walked with him. They talked with him. They watched him be ascended up into heaven. They said, man, we saw him face to face. And you know what's crazy about that? I can't think of one reason why any of them would have made it up. Not one. And don't you think that if they would have made it up, when the pressure would have been turned on, don't you think that one by one, they would have cracked and said, man, this was all fabricated. But not one of them did. Not one. In fact, I want you to think about this. Matthew was killed with a sword in Ethiopia. Mark, he was drugged by horses, behind horses in the city of Alexandria through the streets until he was dead. Luke, he was hanged. Philip and Andrew, crucified. James, beheaded. Bartholomew, he was whipped to death. Remember doubting Thomas? He was killed with a spear. Simon, he was sawed in half. Peter, before they crucified Peter, they actually raped his wife in front of him and then crucified her and made him watch his wife die. And then when it was Peter's turn to be executed, they were going to crucify him, and he said, I am not worthy to be crucified like my Lord was. Please crucify me upside down. And then Paul, in prison for years, ultimately beheaded with an axe. Don't you think that when the pressure was turned on, that one by one, each one of them would crack? But I'm telling you, nobody is willing to die to protect a lie. Not you, not me. And I want you to think about this. What did they get out of it? Did they get rich? Did they get famous? No, nobody is willing to die to protect a lie. Listen, what is the number one thing that separates Christianity? What causes Christianity to be the one true religion? It's found, the simplicity is found in one word, and his name, everybody, it's Jesus. That's the reason, because he said I would be handed over to my enemies, I would be crucified, and yet I would be raised from the dead to be alive forevermore. I'm telling you, everybody, your King is alive. He's alive. And just as he defeated death, he wants to defeat the death that is happening in your world right now, and he wants to bring his life. Amen, everybody? He wants to bring it.